الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Before we begin, we have a few important announcements. First off, as you all know, this Sunday the time changes, so that would mean that Isha gets later. So Isha will be at 8:45 from this coming Sunday. And that would mean that we'll move our Seerah to after Maghrib, inshallah. So Maghrib is around 7:05, 7:10, around that time. So we'll start after Maghrib, inshallah, from next week. And then we will end before Isha. We'll give time for refreshments, inshallah, before Isha. So by 8:45, inshallah, we'll all be wrapped up, inshallah. So after Maghrib from next week, inshallah. So please see the sunset time. 5 minutes after sunset, we pray Maghrib. So please make sure you note that down for next week, inshallah. The second thing that everyone's asking about is our Umrah trips and the coronavirus. What's going on with that? Our second group, Mufti Asif's group, that's going on March the 12th. That one they still haven't decided. So it's on hold right now for those going with them. For those going with me, we were supposed to leave on March the 6th with Miftah Institute, and we decided this morning to cancel the trip. And those that were going have already gotten the email and the memo. And I know it's really hard, and ironically what we're discussing today, I'll tie it into that, inshallah, as you'll see. But it's really I know a lot of people are asking why, and surprisingly, I mean, mashallah, my WhatsApp is still full. I haven't even responded to people asking about what's going on. Right? Even everyone that's not going, they want to find out because love for the community. They want to find out what's going on. And the reality is that it's a tough decision because everybody, including myself, it's an excitement, especially for those that are going for the first time. It's something you've waited for a long time. People, they save up money, they take off time from their work. There's a whole thing that goes behind it. There's a whole, feeling behind it. You pack your bags, you tell everyone. People are telling you what you need to bring. There's this excitement that's created, and all of a sudden it just comes down. But it's the right decision in light of now that they have a confirmed coronavirus case in Saudi Arabia. The Ministry of Health announced, and together we sat down and we talked about it. And this seemed to be like the responsible thing to do, because all these people are a liability. Taking all these people there, even if we get in, and may Allah protect us if somebody gets sick, it's something that we should avoid. And considering the Umrah is not obligatory, and even if it was for Hajj, then we learn from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that during the Umar radiallahu anhu's time, there was a plague during Umar radiallahu anhu's time. It's known as the plague of Amwas. Amwas was an area around Syria. And at that time, many of the companions, they died in the plague. And Umar radiallahu anhu in particular, when he was going, and this was the time where Jerusalem was conquered by the Muslims, he in particular did not enter Amwas. And he was asked about it, and Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he read the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that إِذَا سَمِعْتُمْ بِأَرْضٍ, that if you hear about a land in which the plague has spread, then do not leave from it, and similarly do not enter it. So the idea of a quarantine was put in place by our Prophet ﷺ. And I was speaking with Dr. Khaja and Dr. Hilal, inshallah. We're setting up a workshop soon, inshallah, and the coming weekend or the weekend after, where inshallah I'll do a presentation on what does Islam say, and what do we learn from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when it comes to plagues and epidemics. And at the same time, what is the medical perspective? We'll have, inshallah, a specialist physician who will tell us, for our kids, for us, what are practical things we need to keep in mind. And so, inshallah, I'll get into the idea of this. Things happening that we really don't want, I'll get into it, inshallah, later on. So, starting off with our Seerah. We had last discussed Abu Talib, his passing, Khadija radiallahu anha, her passing, which was known as the year of sadness. This was the saddest year in the life of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And after they had passed away, I had mentioned how the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, many things in his life changed. Primarily, You have to understand that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ no longer has his biggest supporter outside of the house. In Mecca, his biggest supporter is Abu Talib, he's gone. And in his house, Khadija radiallahu anha, she's gone. So the major framework, the major structure for his support is gone now. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he now has Fatima radiallahu anha in his house. She is now an orphan. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, now that he comes home, he sees his daughter, and she's young at the time. And you can imagine what he's going through. And if that's not bad enough, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ now, when he goes outside of his house, no longer is Abu Talib there, that people would be afraid of him to attack the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. Abu Talib is no longer there. Now it's an open chance for anyone who wanted to hurt the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, because the main protector was Abu Talib. And that's why some of the most graphic narrations that we have where the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, where he faced great amounts of physical torture, were actually in this period. After Abu Talib and Khadija have gone, and the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, now all these people, Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, they're really turning it up. They realize that no one is there to protect him at that time. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, of the narrations that we have, that Abu Jahl one time, when the Prophet of Allah ﷺ would be praying, Abu Jahl would at that time walk up to the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, and he would actually try to physically strangle the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. He'd put something around his neck, and he would try to strangle him. And at that time, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he's trying to get out of that, and you can imagine what he's thinking. Because before this, in the rare occasion that someone did do something to him, Abu Talib was there. And now he's on his own, and no one is there. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, this being one of the most difficult periods in his life, facing physical persecution, being sad from losing his wife, sad from losing his uncle, he starts to think that perhaps if my da'wah, if my message is not so effective here, maybe I can go out and find another place and start spreading my message there. And keep in mind that the messengers of Allah ﷺ, and alayhi salatu wasalam, they don't leave their appointed city until Allah tells them to. And Nuh alayhi salam, we learn about him in particular, that Nuh alayhi salam, for 950 years, أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا خَمْسِينَ عَامًا, the Quran says, 950 years. And even in this word, it's very interesting, because I always ask our Arab brothers and sisters, why did Allah say أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا خَمْسِينَ عَامًا? Because sana means year, and aam means year as well. 1,000 years, except for 50 years. Why did he use a different word simply to get across the meaning of the word year? He could have used the same word. But in the, Arabic is very rich in its meaning. Sana is a year in which there is great difficulty. And aam is a year in which there is ease. In other words, those 950 years were not easy for Nuh alayhi salam. And he worked in his people. Surah Nuh is there. We can inshallah study it sometime. Allah Azza wa Jalla speaks in great detail of how he went to his people, to the influential people, to the downtrodden people. He gave da'wah out loud, in public, privately meeting people. He tried everything possible, and they turned away from him, except for a small few number of followers. And similar would happen to many other prophets, to the point that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said that there would come prophets on the Day of Judgment, and they don't have any followers at all. Imagine that. You came here for 50, 60, 100, 200 years, and you spread the message of Allah, you tried to convince people, and you don't have any followers. But nonetheless, they were successful from their perspective. So the prophets of Allah, they don't leave their area until Allah tells them to. And in particular, Yunus alayhi salam, he is the only prophet that left before Allah Azza wa Jalla actually allowed him to. And the story of the whale is very famous. That was, he realized his mistake in the whale. When he was swallowed by the whale, he realized his mistake. And he made that beautiful dua, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. He turned to Allah, recognizing that he was in the wrong. So the prophets of Allah don't leave. But the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he doesn't intend to migrate. He simply intends to visit another city now. And so the cities around, the closest city to Mecca is the city of Ta'if at that time. And Ta'if was a well-known city. And Ta'if was very unique in terms of its weather, in terms of the environment of Ta'if, for a number of reasons. First of all, because Ta'if was actually the hometown of the Banu Thaqif tribe. Now that we've heard the name of Quraysh many times, but the Banu Thaqif tribe are the second most influential tribe in that area. So number two, after Mecca, the Quraysh being the most powerful, next in line comes Banu Thaqif in Ta'if. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he began to think about Ta'if, and in Ta'if was actually, we've heard many times that the Prophet of Allah ﷺ, speaking about the Allat and Al-Uzza, speaking about the two idols that were there at that time. The Arabs used to swear by Wallati wal-Uzza. They swear by Allat and Al-Uzza. And this Lat idol that we've heard so many times was actually in the town of Ta'if. And they had built a grand temple. And in that temple they had the idol of Lat. And actually they wanted to kind of go have a competition with the Quraysh to see who could get more people. Because the Quraysh have Mecca, the Quraysh have the Kaaba, and they want the Kaaba, and then so the Kaaba is where everyone goes to, but they want their own Kaaba. So they said, let's put up the idol of that. Instead of people going to Mecca, they'll come to us. And that's why when Abraha, if you remember way back when we discussed the year of the elephant, when he decided to attack the Kaaba, the people of Ta'if were with him. Because they wanted to take down the Kaaba, hence diverting all the people to their city in Ta'if. So Ta'if is known to be a religious place from the pagan perspective. So many people come to Ta'if as well. And then Ta'if could be a great potential city for the Muslims. Because the Muslims are struggling in Mecca, the few that are left there, about 80 or 70 at that time, and then the rest of them are in Abyssinia. So for the people there, this could be a great opportunity, a great time for the people of Mecca to have some relaxation. And perhaps if the people of Ta'if accept Islam, then they actually join the Prophet ﷺ and become that barrier between him and the Quraysh. That support group that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is looking for, these people have the potential to be that. And so, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he goes out. And Ta'if is full of greenery, it's full of beautiful gardens, and many of the people of Quraysh, they actually had areas outside of Ta'if. So outside of Ta'if, they had small gardens, summer houses or vacation houses, if you may think of it in that way. And they would go over there in the summertime and they'd relax and they'd spend time with their families there. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he thought that, let me head to Ta'if. But the problem is, the moment the Messenger of Allah ﷺ leaves, either on an animal, or either with his belongings, or either with a group of people, everybody will know that he's going somewhere. Where is he going? If he's heading out on an animal. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he can't take an animal. So he has to go on foot. And it's about in today's time, it's about 60 or 70 miles between Mecca and Ta'if. And the Prophet ﷺ, he walked the entire way. For those that have gone to Mecca, if you've ever traveled past it, you would know that it's about 70 miles. So imagine walking that distance. And then he has to choose someone who is trustworthy, but at the same time, the people of Quraysh, they don't get this idea that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is going to another people, because they come after him. So he picks Zayd ibn Haritha. Who remembers Zayd ibn Haritha?
Zayd ibn Haritha is his adopted son.
His adopted son. Zayd ibn Haritha is the adopted son of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. Way back in the Seerah, we remember that Zayd was one of the first converts, because he was living in the house of the Messenger of Allah ﷺ. So Zayd ibn Haritha, the Prophet ﷺ brings him, he's his adopted son. And nobody would question why the Messenger of Allah ﷺ has his adopted son with him. And then they don't have much They're not taking much with them. So it doesn't seem as if the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is leaving. Again, you can see that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he doesn't simply say, I rely on Allah. He thinks it through. There's an entire structured plan before he does something. And so he leaves on foot, and Zayd ibn Haritha is with him. And they reach there after a few days. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, the first thing he does when he reaches Ta'if is that he seeks out the influential leaders as a sign of respect. See, in that particular time, and in many tribal cultures, when you enter a certain town, the respectful and honorable thing to do is to go to the elders of that town. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he's very aware of his surroundings. He knows there's a certain culture. He knows there's a certain background to where he's going to. So he first goes and he sees who are the most influential people, and he begins to make appointments with them one-on-one. He asks them for a time that I'd like to meet you, I'd like to sit with you. And so he meets with a number of them, and he does not get a positive response from any one of them. And as a matter of fact, he seeks out the leader, one of the leaders of Ta'if, who had passed recently, but his sons were very powerful. His name was Amr ibn Umayr. And Amr ibn Umayr was one of the most influential leaders of Ta'if at that time. And so he seeks out his sons, and there were three: Abdu Yali, Mas'ud, and Habib. These three were the sons, and they were considered the most influential in that area. So the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he goes out, and he speaks to them. And one of them actually had a wife that was from one of the clans of Quraysh. So because there was some idea of them being related to the Prophet ﷺ, he goes to him first. And so he speaks to him. He tells him, this is my message, this is what I've come with. And what does this man say? He says, أَمْرُتُ ثِيَابَ الْكَعْبَةِ إِنْ كَانَ اللَّهُ أَرْسَلَكَ. He says, you know what? This is so ridiculous. If you're really the Prophet, I'll go to the Kaaba and I'll rip off the coverings of the Kaaba. Imagine what type of a response is this? Imagine how frustrated the Messenger of Allah ﷺ must feel when somebody's telling you that. Then he goes to the next one and he says that, أَمَا وَجَدَ اللَّهُ أَحَدًا يُرْسِلُهُ غَيْرَكَ. Did Allah not find anyone else? Are you the only one that could come to us? You're the Prophet? And one of them would say, لَوْلَا نُزِّلَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنُ عَلَى رَجُلٍ مِنَ الْقَرْيَتَيْنِ عَظِيمٍ. That Allah would reveal this statement of theirs in the Qur'an, that why would Allah not reveal down the Qur'an on someone who's influential? Why you? Why not someone from our tribe? أَمَا وَجَدَ اللَّهُ أَحَدًا يُرْسِلُهُ غَيْرَكَ. Couldn't Allah send anyone else? He had to send you. That's the second person's response. The third brother, he goes to him, and the third brother actually says that, وَاللَّهِ لَا أُكَلِّمُكَ أَبَدًا. He said, you know what? I don't even want to speak to you. لَإِن كُنْتَ رَسُولًا مِّنَ اللَّهِ كَمَا تَقُولُ لَأَنْتَ أَعْظَمُ خَطَرًا مِّنْ أَنْ أَرُدَّ عَلَيْكَ الْكَلَامِ. If you are truly the Messenger of Allah, then it's actually very dangerous for me to reject you. So I'll just ignore you. I don't want to come in your way. وَلَإِن كُنْتَ تَكْذِبُ عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا يَنْبَغِي لِي أَنْ أُكَلِّمَكَ. And if you are lying, then I want nothing to do with you either. Because if I get in with a liar, then I'll be bunched with all the liars. So I want nothing to do with you. And so the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he is very frustrated. And he does not know what to do at this point. So he goes to the bazaar and he sees the condition of the people. And he starts to speak to them one-on-one. And it turns out that the people, the leaders, they find out that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is doing that. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he says, look, I'm not here to spread any harm in your society. And if you don't want me here, I'll leave. But at least don't tell the people of Quraysh that I was here. Because the moment they tell the people of Quraysh, then the Messenger of Allah ﷺ is in trouble because he went to another town. And they'll turn up the already great amounts of persecution that he's facing. So they didn't honor their word. And actually what they did is that they said, you know what, we won't even let you go in peace. We won't even let you go in peace. And the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, he begins to leave the city of Ta'if after having spent a total of 10 days in Ta'if. And when he is leaving with his son, his adopted son, Zayd ibn Haritha, as they reach the boundary of Ta'if, and as they're exiting from there, they actually gather all of the riffraffs, all of the street thugs, if you can say. And they say that we offer you a reward if you can make his leaving a horrible experience. And so, they line up outside of the city of Ta'if in 2 rows. And I want to actually show this because we've always heard about it. If I can get 10 volunteers to make 2 rows here. Anyone. So you just stand in 2 rows here. 2 rows. Okay, fine. 2 rows. Face this way. Face each other. Face each other. There you go. More people on either side. Keep going. This way. Over here. Okay. This way. Come. Okay. So you have people of 2 rows. Can you guys move this way? Go back. Okay. So when we think of the Messenger of Allah leaving Ta'if, what happens is that there are 2 rows of people. You know the way somebody's welcome? You have 2 rows of people. Now the Messenger of Allah, he has to walk through all of these people. There are hundreds of people that he has to walk through. Move out of the way, middle. There we go. Perfect. Right. He has to walk through all these people. And now imagine every person here actually has a stone in their hands. Every person amongst them has a stone in their hands. And the Messenger of Allah, he has to walk through them. And because there are only a limited number of people, when that person throws his stone, he gets up from there and he walks all the way here. So by the time the Messenger of Allah reaches here, there's another person here. Then he throws his stone, and so on the line continues. And this line and this running continues for, y'all can't see. These 2 lines continue for 3 miles. Because we learned that the area where the Messenger of Allah would walk through these lines would be at the end of Qarn al-Tha'alib. And Qarn al-Tha'alib would be the area where the boundaries of Ta'if ended. So that's 3 miles that he has to walk through. And he's being hit with stones. And we know that the Messenger of Allah, he was bleeding. Now what's interesting to know is that it's not very easy to bleed at your feet. If you're hit at your chest, or hit you on your head, it's easier to bleed. But the Messenger of Allah, he's being hit on his feet. And not only does he bleed, but on top of that, what happens is that the leather sandals that he has, the blood in his feet have been soaked up by that sandal. And now what happens is that those sandals become crusty and hard because of the dried blood. And they actually stick to his feet. So the sandals are not even coming off of his feet. And you can imagine how the Messenger of Allah is feeling physically. And the only person with him is Zayd ibn Haritha. And Zayd ibn Haritha, he actually is being hit as well, but he's protecting the Messenger of Allah. Because to him, he's like a father figure. And as he's protecting the Messenger of Allah, he actually gets hit in the head. And it's a very big wound. And he is struggling to keep up. But he realizes that the Messenger of Allah is fainting. The Messenger of Allah has lost so much blood that he's fainting now. And so, as these people are there, he says to the Messenger of Allah that let's run. Because if you run, then you can beat those lines. Because by the time the lines increase, people come, you'll run. So he begins to run with the Messenger of Allah. And these people begin to run behind him. And as they're running, the Prophet begins to lose his consciousness. And so what happens is that Zayd, he picks up the Prophet on his shoulders.
What?
And he alone is running with the Prophet. He has the Prophet in his arms. He's a young man, 20, 22, he's well built. He's picking up the Messenger of Allah and he's running with him. Running away from these people. And you can imagine that there's nothing in sight that could tell them that everything will be okay. You're running out of a town on your foot. There's nothing possibly, no amount of comfort can come from it. But ironically what happens is that Zayd ibn Haritha, he sees a garden. And this garden, he doesn't know who it belongs to. So he says that if I enter this garden, and the garden is a private property, so nobody can enter it, it's a private garden. If I enter this garden, we will find a place where we can be safe. And so he enters there, and as he lays down, the Prophet ﷺ, and as the Prophet ﷺ regains his consciousness, you can imagine what he's going through. And what does the Prophet of Allah ﷺ do in this particular moment? The Prophet of Allah ﷺ, he stands up to pray. And it's very difficult for him to pray. So he completes 2 rak'ahs and then he sits down. And he makes a dua. And this dua is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful du'as that we know from the Messenger of Allah. His dua at Allah. And you can imagine how hurt he feels. Because the people of Mecca have rejected him. The first try he gave to another city, they rejected him. So you can imagine what he feels. So what is he saying in this dua? Allahumma ashku ilayka darfa quwwati. Oh Allah, I complain to you of my weakness. I don't have the power to convince these people. I complain to you about that. You know, for many of us, as we go through this dua, for many of us, our dua is something that it's rote memorization. We've memorized the dua, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً. That's all we say. But the dua really is, in essence, what the dua is da'ayatu means to call out to Allah. You have to learn how to talk to Allah. You pour your heart out to, and in front of Allah and say, Ya Allah, this is what I'm going through. Allahumma ashku ilayka dha'fa quwwati wa qillata hilati. And the lack of my resources, the lack of my support. Ya Allah, I'm complaining to you. I have no one else to go to. Wa hawani ala nas. And then the disgrace that I'm facing from all these people. And then what does he say? He's complaining to Allah, talking to Allah about his problems. He says, Anta arhamur rahimin. But oh Allah, even though I'm going through all of this, Anta arhamur rahimin. You are the most merciful, and I know that. Wa anta rabbul mustada'afin. But I also know that you are the Lord of the people, al-mustada'afin, that are going through a difficult time, that are weak. Ila man takiluni. To whom have you handed me over? Who are these people? Ila aduwin yatahajjamuni. To a group of people that have treated me with hostility, have kicked me out of their town. Am ila aduwin man naktahu amri. Or these people have such power that they're stoning me. You can see how hurt the Messenger of Allah is. But even in that moment, what does he want? What does he ask Allah? He says, أعوذ بنور وجهك الذي أشرقت له الظلمات من أن تكون غضبا عليك. That I seek refuge in your face. And this is a beautiful way of describing Allah. بنور وجهك الذي أشرقت له الظلمات. Because the light that you've created in this creation, everything comes from you, every good comes from you, every khair comes from you. You are the munawwir, you're the one that lights up everything around us. I seek refuge in you from your anger. I'm worried that maybe you're angry with me. When was the last time you and I, when something bad happens, we think of Allah's anger? What I'm doing, is it something that would make Allah angry? When was the last time you and I think of that? And you and I, keep in mind that this is the process of doing something that's not for himself. He's not doing it for any worldly purpose. He's doing it for the religion of Allah. And at that point, he's making this dua. He's saying, oh Allah, I hope that you're not angry with me. And rahmatuka wa afiyatuka awsa'uni. And I know that this is a tough time. But all I want from you, Ya Allah, is that you give me afiyah. You give me protection. You open things up for me. And if you're not angry with me, then there's nothing else that I care for. لَكَ الْعُتْبَى حَتَّى تَرْضَى. For you is my submission حَتَّى تَرْضَى, until you are pleased. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ الْعَلِيِّ الْعَظِيمِ. And I want to focus on this last part. What does this mean? لَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. We say this all the time, right? لَا حَوْلَ. But usually we say it when we see something bad. We say لَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ. That's not how it works. La hawla wa la quwwata means there is no power. There is nothing someone can do illa billah, except for Allah. Because the Prophet realizes that he tried his best, he planned it out, he thought of it strategically. that if I go out into life, things should work out. But things didn't work out. And I want to tie that into our Umrah. For those that were going, everything seemed like it was perfect. You have your visa, you bought your ticket, you have your days off. Everything seems perfect. Everything seems perfect. And in this materialistic world, we think because I have the money for it, because I've done the logistics, it'll work out. That's not how things work out. And Allah teaches us a lesson through the Prophet. In this particular incident of life, that Allah has a plan. We all plan from the outward, but behind the scenes, something that we can't see, there's another plan happening. And although we don't see it at that time, it doesn't make sense at that time. Why should I not be able to go for Umrah? Why? It doesn't make sense at that time. But later on, when the Prophet ﷺ, when the people of Ta'if would come, 9 years into Medina, and they'd all accept Islam, it made sense. The moment the Prophet ﷺ is making this dua, the angels, and you can imagine what's happening in the heavens. And so, Allah Azza wa Jalla sends down Jibreel. And Jibreel comes and he says, Ya Rasulullah, I'm here, immediately after his dua, I'm here because Allah has sent me, and He sent with me Malakul Jibal. He sent with me the angel that's in charge of the mountains. And this angel, he's here to make you an offer. And he says, O Messenger of Allah, in amartani utbit alayhim al-akhshabayn. Ta'if is in between the two mountains. And he says, O Messenger of Allah, if you allow for it, I'll crush these people between the two mountains. Everyone in there, I'll crush them all. Utbit alayhim al-akhshabayn. There'll be nothing left of these people. And I want you to imagine if you and I were in that situation, what would we do?
Yes.
Somebody steals our parking space. We were frustrated. We're like, this is the worst person ever. How can he steal my parking space? The Messenger of Allah, after everything that he's gone through, what does he say? He says, لَعَلَّ اللَّهَ أَنْ يَخْرُجَ مِنْ أَصْلَابِهِمْ مَنْ يُوَحِّدُونَ. That no, leave them. Maybe not them, maybe their children. Maybe not them, maybe their children. Maybe someone from their progeny will accept Islam. That's how you know that you can't make this up. That's how you know that Prophet had no other thing in mind. The Prophet should have said, I'm disrespected, and crush all these people. But the Prophet wasn't sent for that purpose. When we say he was sent for rahmatan lil alameen, and when you and I say that, yeah, Islam is about mercy and peace, but we can't tolerate one another, then where does that mercy and peace go? The Messenger of Allah, he was rahmatan lil alameen, and he showed it practically. It's a practical, living example of how he can make dua, and all he has to say is go for it, and the angel will crush all these people. He chooses not to. He chooses the merciful. And the Messenger of Allah, he'd go on to Medina, and as I said, after all those years, when the people of Ta'if would come, he'd smile and at the fruition of his efforts, get the fruit of that. Whenever we're going through trials, whenever we're going through difficulties, it seems very difficult at that time because we have a limited view, but Allah has a complete view. And when we come around, things go around, we see that there was certainly a wisdom behind it. And the Rasulullah, he gets a taste of that immediately. Because that very garden that he's in, and he's making dua, who does that garden belong to? Utbah and Utayba, two of the biggest enemies of the Prophet from Quraysh, and they happen to be in the garden. Think of that. These are two people that have tried to kill him and tried to hurt him, and he's in their garden, ironically. And now what happens? They find out and they see the Prophet and they feel bad for him. Ibn Ishaq says, تَحَرَّكَتْ لَهُ مَا رَحِمَهُمَا. For Zayd and the Prophet they felt bad in their heart. That did he really deserve this? What have we done to him? And so he goes out. And they both prepare some grapes and some nice water, fresh clean water, some grapes, they clean them up, and realize that grapes are a rare delicacy in Mecca at that time. In Arabia, there's not many places where you can find grapes. That's the best thing that you can see. The best thing you can eat at that time. So they prepare it and they want to go to the Messenger of Allah. But then that barrier is there in between. Right? Because that's Muhammad. How can I go? So they say, okay, we won't go, but we'll send our slave. And so they send Addas. And Addas was the slave of Utbah. And he goes to the Messenger of Allah and he presents it. Look at the manners of the Messenger of Allah. He presents it and he sits down. The Messenger of Allah, he doesn't eat. And imagine how hungry he must be. He asks and he says, "What's your name?" And he says, "My name is Addas." And the Prophet recognized from the name that he wasn't an Arabian. He wasn't someone from Arabia. And so the Messenger of Allah, he picks it up and he says, "Bismillah." And when he says Bismillah, Addas' ears open up. And he's like, this is something different. And he says to the Messenger of Allah, he said, "What did you just say?" The Prophet said, "I said Bismillah." He said, "I haven't heard the people here say this. Nobody says this. Why would you say Bismillah?" And the Prophet said, "Well, if you're not from here, where are you from?" And he says, "I'm from Ninawa." And the Prophet, he says, "Ninawa. Ninawa is the town of my brother, Yunus bin Metta. Yunus was from Ninawa." So he says, "Oh, you're from the town of my brother." And he gets excited because all growing up, he's heard of the prophet of his town, Yunus alayhi. And so he says to him, "Wama adraka ma Yunus?" He said, "Well, what do you know about Yunus? Or how do you know about Yunus?" And the Prophet, he says, "Kana nabiyyan," that he was a brother. "Wa ana nabiyyan," and I'm a brother too. And the prophets are all brothers amongst themselves. So he was my brother. And so the Messenger of Allah talked to him, and he forgot all his pains. Because of this one slave that accepted Islam, he forgot. And Addas, he began to kiss the hands and the feet of the Messenger of Allah out of love and devotion. And he said that, "I see in you what we used to hear about the prophets, I see in you." And later on, Addas would actually, when the people of Quraysh would go and fight the Muslims, as we'll cover in Uhud, or in Badr rather, Addas, when he would be told by his masters to go out with them, he'd say no. He's like, "I'm not fighting that man, he's a prophet. I'm not fighting him." And he would become, this man Addas, would become one of the main people to change his society. How amazing is that? Because of the Messenger of Allah giving attention, and something that I want to bring our attention to, because of saying Bismillah. The Prophet doesn't say Bismillah. Addas comes and gives the plate, he leaves. The small sunnahs that we act on, that we don't think has an effect, the fact that we pray in public, or the fact that somebody knows that we're Muslim, they see our name, or something else that we do, or in Ramadan we say, "I'm fasting, I can't eat, I'm sorry." Those things can actually be the very reason that someone comes into Islam. The Prophet said Bismillah, and that was it for Addas. Bismillah opened up everything. And so, you should never belittle the small things. And the Messenger of Allah, he would go back to the city of Mecca. And we'll discuss next week how he would enter the city of Mecca. Because now that he's left the city of Mecca, how does he go back into the city of Mecca as the people find out? And that would be something that would worry the Messenger of Allah, but Allah has his ways, and he will take his Habib back in. And then from next week we'll talk about the journey of the Isra and Mi'raj, the beautiful journey to the heavens that the Messenger of Allah will get as a reward for all these trials. And so we end with that, inshallah. We have our prize draw tonight, inshallah. So let's go on to it. We have our pizza as well, inshallah, afterwards. So we'll do the prize draw, inshallah, and then we'll downstairs.
There's the prize draw.
Assalamu alaikum. So just to quickly go over every month for the kids, for anyone 18 and under, we have a prize draw, so everyone can sign up. There's QR codes posted outside. And anyone who attends all 4 sessions for the month, so this time for the month of February, is eligible for a prize draw. So this month, I'm going to talk about what we have for the prize.
So we have a different Seerah book as always. So a lot of people ask me about books for Seerah in English, and we've given out different books. This particular one, Muhammad ﷺ, his life based on the earliest sources, is written by Martin Lings. And Martin Lings is a very interesting story because he's actually an expert in Shakespearean literature, and he accepted Islam. And he changed his name to Abu Bakr Sirajuddin. And he was a convert, he accepted Islam, he would travel to Egypt, he'd learn Arabic, he'd study in Al-Azhar, he'd study in the in the madrasas of Egypt. He'd come back and then he wrote this, and it's one of the best works written in English. The flow of the way he writes is just beautiful. It's only about $10, I recommend. The English is a little bit difficult. If you're older and you enjoy reading English literature, it's an amazing book and I recommend you all get it, inshallah. So we have this for, inshallah, our prize draw winner, and as usual, we have a pair of AirPods as well.
So just a quick note is that this month, alhamdulillah, we actually had the most sign-ups for every day throughout the month. So jazakallah khair for everyone coming out. As you know, Sheikh Hamza has gone over this multiple times. The intention of doing this is to encourage all the youth to come participate, listen, and learn about the Seerah. Actually, we have a large group here today, as we have had for the duration of the night. And the winner for the month of February is Arib Ahmed.
Takbir. Takbir. Takbir.
And there's pizza refreshments downstairs for everyone, inshallah, so please make your way down there.